to Box Free with Stephanie. Today I'm going to show you how to make some basic foods with simple ingredients from scratch. And I hope you discover cooking box free is fast and delicious. So let's cook together. Today we are going to make Finnish braided cardamom bread because it's a holiday season and I'm half Finnish, and so I kind of grew up eating cardamom bread more when I was much younger. But it's just a beautiful bread. And it's pretty easy, really, especially if you have a bread machine. So that's what we're going to make today. So in my bread machine, it just went off, so I just unplugged it. But in here, I have my my dough. You can make this without a bread machine, but it's obviously just, you know, more work and all that. So I'm going to butter my hands to reach in and grab my dough. And it's a very kind of dense dough. It's not really the same as yeast dough. It's just heavier, I guess, is the way I would describe it. And that's what is nice about egg breads. I'm just going to grab my extra little bit out of there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just, you always want to, oh, I got a little bit of the stuff on the bottom of it. You want to squeeze air out of your bread anytime you're using yeast after you've let it rise the first time, just to get any air out of it. And then I don't actually want to put flour on here because I don't want my dough to get too dry. So first I'm gonna just grease my pan with butter. I do plenty of butter on here because it's I just don't want it to stick and I want it to release really nicely. I'm sure you could use a parchment paper or spray or whatever, but I just use a little quick coating of butter. And then I'm also going to put butter on my countertop because that's how I'm going to roll it out with getting too much flour and making it too dry. So I'm going to braid this. So I need to cut it kind of into thirds. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it to be relatively the same so that all of your three braids are the same size, and then they all rise at the same size. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to call that good. All right, so we're going to start with one. And you can just kind of roll it out like a snake. And this takes just a little bit of time because yeast bread is always, just takes time to shape it. But if you do work hard enough, you can shape it pretty much into whatever you want. And that's kind of the fun thing about yeast doughs is they're just fun to shape. So I don't really want this really skinny snake part. But I'm going to just kind of let this go like that. Let that rest for a minute and work on my second one. So cardamom bread is a very Finnish bread. The cardamom is Finnish, but you'll have to see how much cardamom you actually want in your recipe. So let me tell you what's in this dough, since I'm not actually showing you how I make it. I start with 1 egg and 2 tablespoons of butter. For that big air pocket, I gotta get that out of there. Okay, 1 egg, 2 tablespoons of butter, half a cup of milk, and then those are my wet ingredients. And then I do 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and then I do 1.5 teaspoons of cardamom. But that's where you'll have to kind of see if you use fresh cardamom. You might only need 1 teaspoon. If yours is kind of old and doesn't have as much flavor, you might need 2 or 2.5 teaspoons. So you might just kind of have to see what you like, how much cardamom flavoring you want in your bread. Okay, so this one got pretty long right away. Okay, so then I do 1.5 teaspoons of cardamom, and then 1/3 cup of sugar. So it doesn't have a whole lot of bread of sweetness, but enough. 1/3 cup of sugar, and then 2 cups of flour. So you put all that in your bread dough, and then you set it on the dough setting and wait for it to become this perfect dough. So every now and then when I do this, it seems like my bread machine gets really, well, I don't know, maybe this dough is just finicky or something, but anyway, it seems like you have to almost watch it the first 5 minutes, because the one time I had it like just coated underneath, the second it was fine, the next it was like I had just all this flour around the bottom that I kind of scraped into it. So I don't know, maybe if I did nothing it would be just fine, but I tend to watch it to make sure that it's actually working in the machine and getting all the stuff, because this is just so dense, I feel like. But whatever, maybe you can just pop it in and be fine, I'm not sure. And then, of course, in my machine, I put 1.5 teaspoons of yeast. I just forgot to tell you that. So flour, 2 cups of flour, 1/3 cup of sugar, 1.5 teaspoon of cardamom, 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1/2 cup of milk, 2 tablespoons of butter, 1 egg, and then 1.5 teaspoons of yeast. Okay, so I like how these are basically all the same length. They're basically the length of my pan, so that's perfect. Now I'm gonna braid from the middle because I think then it gets you, gets you a little nicer ending, I feel like. So when you get to the end of braiding, you just kind of grab them all and kind of tuck it under so it doesn't look so yucky or whatever, but then you get a nice braid. Now here I have to actually braid like upside down because I'm braiding from the middle. But I don't know, that's I think how the pros do it. I'm not really sure. I just like to do it. See, now this one I like came over and so I have this really nice ending, but I'm still going to kind of grab all of it and make a little cluster so they don't come, you don't want them to like come undone and then have these 3 things like sticking out. So this end is really pretty. So I'm going to try to make this end a little prettier like that. Okay, so it's super easy. Like braiding bread is the coolest thing. It's just really fun. And then you just pick up the whole thing, pretty much just, you know, wiggles and wobbles. It's kind of no big deal. And so that's it. It looks really kind of small right now. Looks like there's something on it. I want to get that off. I don't know what that is. And then I'm going to put a tea towel or just a cotton towel over it to let it rise. Oh, I got to turn my oven on. Okay, so hang on. One little trick I do when I'm making yeast bread and letting it rise is I heat my oven up for 2 minutes just to get a warm oven, because even though it's like sunny out and my house is relatively warm, it's not really like a nice 80 degrees that I want for my yeast to rise. So but when I'm doing this little trick, you always have to set your timer, because if you preheat your oven to 325, or it's actually 375, but anyway, if you heat your oven up and then forget, your oven's like way too hot. And I actually did that one time. I was trying to reheat it or preheat it and I forgot. And then I actually like started baking my dough just like this because my oven was so hot. So I mean, you certainly don't want that to happen. So you just need to cover it somehow. I just like to use these cotton towels and I wet it so it basically doesn't stick as much. And I'm actually just going to do 1 layer so it's not so heavy. But you can do, I don't know, saran wrap or whatever else, or just a dry towel usually works too. So what I want to notice is how big this is. So I've got like 1 inch on each side, you know, a good 2 or 3 inches. This is kind of like equally spread apart because I don't want this to over rise. So I'm kind of paying attention to see when it like doubles in size, and it should actually come out to here and kind of, you know, like get really big and beautiful. And then we'll decorate it with our almonds and salt, and then we'll actually bake it. Okay, so this has been about 2 minutes. So now I'm going to turn this off and see, like, it's nice and warm in here without being like 200 degrees. So I really just want my oven to be, you know, like 80 or 85 in there. I'm going to place that gently over it and then put this in my nice 80-degree oven. And just kind of want to feel it to make sure it doesn't feel super hot. You just want it to be, you know, warmer than the room temperature kind of thing. Okay, so that's it. So with the bread machine, it's very easy. So I'm going to give this 30 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and check it and take it out when it's doubled in size. So we'll be back in about 30 minutes. Okay, we are back with our braided cardamom bread. It's actually been rising like 1 hour and 15 minutes. I checked it at like 20 minutes, and I could tell that my cotton towel was like sticking to it, which I don't understand why that happens, but it's been happening to me more often. So I basically sprayed some saran wrap and put it on there because even though the recipe says you can let it rise uncovered, I don't know, I just have a thing about that. I should follow the recipe, but I just didn't. So anyway, it looks gorgeous. And so it's come up to my pan and definitely gotten bigger. So now in here, I just have a plain egg that I kind of whisked with my fork or whatever. So what you do now is brush it with this egg wash, which makes your sliced almonds stick, and then also gives it this nice golden color. And when you're brushing dough like this, you just have to be kind of soft. I mean, you don't really have to get a ton of it on. I mean, I guess you can kind of, but you can just do a light coating. You certainly don't want to like push so hard that it, you know, messes up the shape of your dough. It's just meant to lightly go on there. So just kind of like that. Okay, then I have like a 1/4 cup of sliced almonds, and I'm just gonna sprinkle those kind of all over. I have kind of a lot here, but I think it looks pretty to have a lot, so I'm just gonna kind of use them all up. Wow, that really is a lot. Oh well, whatever, we'll have a lot of almonds on our bread, I guess. I'm gonna just put these extras, like slab them on there. Okay, so that really is a lot of almonds. Like, wow, maybe you only want a tablespoon or two. So whatever you think. If you think it's too much, just don't put so many in. And then this is just plain white sugar. And this just, you know, because the bread isn't very sweet, it's okay to have a little more sugar. And then when you do kind of a decent amount like this, it gets just kind of baked on there and you can actually see it, and it's just kind of pretty. So I didn't even measure this. So I'm going to say that was maybe like a tablespoon worth. Okay, so this looks beautiful already. I can't wait to see what it looks like once it bakes. So I've been heating my oven for 375. It's not actually like fully preheated, but that's okay. I'm going to put this in, and then I'm going to bake it for like 35 to 40 minutes. I'll probably check it in 35, and I'm looking for a really golden brown, and then I'll know it's done. So I'm going to pop it in, and I'll set my timer. All right. Okay, we'll be back in about 40 minutes, 35 minutes, something like that. Okay, we are back and ready to take our gorgeous bread out of the oven. It's actually been about 30 minutes, but I could smell that it was getting done. And so I checked, and it is absolutely gorgeous. Definitely a golden, maybe almost too golden, but I think it's absolutely gorgeous. This is what I think is so cool about this bread. It rises while it's baking, and so then you end up with these like stringy parts that are paler than where the egg wash was, and I think it looks just absolutely gorgeous. So cardamom bread is something you can actually make as a gift. My mom has made this as gifts before, and I mean, can you imagine giving somebody a beautiful loaf like this? Oh my gosh, it just looks so beautiful. And remember how I said there were so many almonds on it, and like it was so much almond stuff, but I think it actually looks just fine. Like, oh, I gotta get this over here. I don't think it has too many, I guess is my point. Like, but that's just a personal preference. You'd have to decide if you think it has too many almonds. But let me just get that out of the way. So, look at this beautiful bread. Isn't this absolutely gorgeous? I mean, I think it's just beautiful. So, so maybe only bake it for 35 minutes, but you're really just going for that nice golden when it gets nice and brown. Usually I don't bake mine quite as much, I don't think, because I end up with a paler center, which I think looks really pretty. But this cardamom bread is just really yummy, and it's really good kind of as a dessert bread because it's basically like an egg bread. When I was looking in my Better Homes and Gardens like classic cookbook, it was just an egg bread, and it had almost the same exact ingredients except no cardamom. So, so anyway, you could use this for breakfast or for brunches and stuff, maybe as a dessert, but it's just gorgeous, so you can just eat it whenever you want to. So I'm supposed to let it cool more, but I'm just dying to try a taste, so I'm going to slice off this little, well, I'll slice off this end here so you guys can see it a little bit better. You definitely want a serrated blade. So it's just a really nice, dense bread. I'm going to take a bite because I can't wait to see how it tastes. Add a little bit of butter. It's going to be so good. All right, hang on. It's just delicious. It's a really simple bread. But the cardamom has a nice taste to it. I did want to say, if you don't have a bread machine, you can obviously make this because my mother didn't have one, my grandmother didn't, my great-grandmother didn't have one. I actually don't know if my grandma made it. It was always my great-grandma and then my mom. You just knead it by hand if you don't have a machine. Just be aware that you have to work a lot harder because it's kind of a, like I said, that denser dough. But look, it's totally worth it because it's beautiful. So there it is, braided cardamom bread. Thank you very much for watching Box Free with Stephanie. I really hope you make this, and I hope it looks as beautiful as this. And I hope your family thinks it's delicious and that you're just an amazing baker. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your time, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.